everybody. It's so nice, I can actually say nice to be here because we finally got the budget done. It was much, much later than any of us would have hoped, but I think it was worth the wait. We got some great policy. We got some great policy with the Regional Green Gas House Initiative being pulled out of, causing the uncertainty with our electric rates. We have the permitting reform, which I never thought I'd see, deemed approved, or shall be approved, however you want to say it, while we were here. And we never touched the rainy day fund or the interest, and that was a priority for our caucus, to leave that intact. And we need to leave it intact because there's so much uncertainty even on the federal level, right? We need to be able to back that up. And, helping the working poor, people that are going to work, we should be so proud of that, all of us, on both sides of the aisle. So, while the budget isn't everything that everybody wanted, we may be spending a little more than we had wanted to spend. It was worth the wait and worth the spend, with the end result being what we have here on paper and what the governor will soon sign. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague who has been sitting in meetings for 5 months, Joe Pittman.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, everybody. As the President Pro Tem said, this is, I believe, a historic moment for this Commonwealth, because what we've done is much more than pass a budget. We've enacted historic reforms that I believe are going to unleash the promise of Pennsylvania at the end of the day, because we've sent a crystal clear message to job creators and to families that we are open for business and we want you living, working, and raising your families here in this Commonwealth. This was a product of compromise. This was a product of consensus. And as the vote total showed, it was ultimately a product that required all 4 caucuses to put up votes to support the passage of this budget and everything that came along with this budget. If it wasn't for the House Republicans' support of this budget, the general appropriation bill would have not passed the House. If it was not for the support of Senate Democrats, the general appropriation would not have passed the Senate. And so we have demonstrated yet again that divided government, as difficult as it may be, can work for the benefit of all of the people in this Commonwealth. And we are pleased that this is concluded, and we look forward to the dynamic change that's going to occur as a result of the budget we've just enacted. And I'd like to now turn it over to my friend and colleague and true partner in this process, Leader Topper.
Thank you, Leader Pittman and Senator Pro Tem Ward. This has been a long journey, and it has been arduous at times. But there has been one real constant since February, and that is as legislative Republicans, in response to the governor's budget proposal, has said that no budgets in the future will be sustainable without economic growth. And if we didn't have policies and enact policies that would promote that economic growth, we would be in a situation in a couple years where we simply would not have the money to fund any budget that is anywhere close to what we have now, let alone increases in the future. In the House Republican caucus, we said it really came down to 3 things: unleashing our energy potential, getting out of RGGI once and for all, permitting reform as a part of that, and opening for business, as the leader said. We also were able to, in this budget, look at education reforms and an acknowledgement that not every student learns the same way, and there are some students in some of the most economically distressed areas that are falling through the cracks. Expanding a tax credit program to ensure that they receive the education that they need to be successful in this Commonwealth is a critical step forward. Much more we can do in that area, but that's a step forward. And then also reforming government and ensuring that those who are on entitlement benefits should be on them. And if those programs are made sustainable, they will still be there for our most vulnerable. But if they are not, if we don't get our error rate down, if we continue to see those costs increase, they will not be sustainable or available for those who truly need it. In this budget, we were able to see policy wins in every one of those areas. And so I was proud to support it. No budget, the idea of perfect, everybody's definition of perfect is different. But this moved Pennsylvania's forward, and I was proud to support it, as was the majority of our caucus.
Take a couple questions.
What was the major breakthrough that got this done?
What I think was a major breakthrough was frankly getting the five parties together. Leader Topper made a very solid recommendation that we had to sit down and recognize that it was going to take all four caucuses and a governor to figure out how to come to consensus. And that was critical to getting this path forward.
How difficult was it for the members to support the number being over 50 billion?
Any number was going to be high for fiscal hawks, and most of us legislative Republicans are in fact that. But we understand that in divided government, there has to be a compromise. In our world, if you were going to increase spending, you had to have policy initiatives that could eventually support that spending. It's up to us to continue that good work and make sure that we actually can in the future.
Can you break down what it is about these permitting reforms that are so good for the Commonwealth?
Well, what makes permitting reform so important is that it's going to provide certainty at the end of the day. Certainty is critical to economic development. We hear it all the time. You know, there's the story of U.S. Steel and where they were going to invest in Allegheny County, but they moved to Arkansas, and the governor of Arkansas made the comment at the time that we put shovels in the ground faster than Pennsylvania issues permits. That type of bureaucracy is not acceptable. And so what we have done here is completely changed the paradigm. It is monumentally changing the way permits are going to be issued throughout this Commonwealth, particularly when you combine it with the successes we had in last year's budget. And at the end of the day, you cannot have economic development without shovels in the ground, and you can't put shovels in the ground without permits.
Can you talk a little bit about, it's $50.1 billion around there, and that was something, a much higher number than you guys initially wanted. Where is that money coming from?
I think the other thing that you saw in this budget was finally the ability, the leader's floor speech about the couch cushions of bureaucracy. So much money that had been hidden or lapsed that we were able to tap into, and I think preserving the rainy day fund shows how much of that money was out there, and that money could be used to preserve programs now, but we do need to be cognizant moving into the future that every year we do a new budget, and every year, just like our households, we have to evaluate it. This year, with the policy wins that were associated with it, this was a price we could afford. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that way next year, but it was this year.
Can you talk about some of the hurdles that you face from coming with transportation funding? I cover Philadelphia, and specifically SEPTA was a big issue over the summer. What lessons were learned, and what you expect maybe next year, how to approach that?
Well, I think what we learned in the transit funding debate was a little bit of a lesson on the diversity of this Commonwealth, recognizing that while transit is extremely important to some areas of this state, transit is not something that's available to all Pennsylvanians. Transit in rural Pennsylvania is roads and infrastructure. And so we've made it very clear, first of all, that we have to accommodate both needs. And of course, as you try to accommodate both needs, that takes even more resources. The other thing I think we have learned, and we've made clear throughout this, is that we're going to add more money to public transit beyond the $1.5 billion that taxpayers already provide. We're going to need to see additional accountability. I was encouraged that SEPTA raised their fares. I think that was an important step in the right direction. But we have to understand that that issue of transit is a very dynamic issue whenever you look at the Commonwealth in its entirety.
I would say to people that say just over $50 billion, we could have gotten there 4 months ago.
4 months ago, we would not have had the policy that is going to create jobs, economic growth. We wouldn't have had that 4 months ago. And I wouldn't even say we could have gotten here 4 months ago, because I think the governor's number was much higher than what we ended up with, right? It was probably $1.5 billion more than where we ended. So I don't think that statement is accurate.
Will these policy changes, permitting reform, taking us out of Reggie, bring in an additional $3 billion, which is about what we're overspending for revenue?
Unleashing our energy potential and improving the business climate of Pennsylvania is the only thing that changes first of all, the demographics of people coming and staying in Pennsylvania. I absolutely believe it has the potential, as long as government gets out of the way and allows the private sector to work, to make up for any of those shortfalls over the next few years.
By next year?
Well, once again, like I said, we do a budget every year, and we'll see what the revenues are next year. But this year, we were able to do it.
My understanding is sports betting for transit was on the table until a lot of ads came out from sports bettors and their allies opposing that. Is that something you'd still consider? And was that on the table at all?
The reality is, whenever you have a budget impasse this long, there's all kinds of ideas that come and go throughout this process.
How about skill games? Where are we on that?
And recreational marijuana.
Well, we continue to believe that gaming reform is essentially important. We see what's going on in communities. We recognize, I believe there is some bipartisan interest in figuring this out. However, this building has a long history of going through gaming debates, and they are very complex and very tedious and very difficult. I certainly believe that gaming reform is and must be an important policy initiative going forward.
We do need to address gaming, and I will just tell you, I think pertaining to your question, is, it's really, it just makes me angry because interested parties, the only people that aren't going to like this budget, right, are special interests. But we get threatened all the time by some of these interests. We're going to come beat you up, we're going to come take you out, we're going to, that's just ridiculous, and it just makes my blood pressure go up. We don't do well being bullied. And I think a lot of these gaming interests have done nothing but try to bully us. And I don't think we stand for that. In the end, we're not going to stand for that.
And to your question about the legalization of marijuana, putting shovels in the ground, bringing jobs to our area and energy development, actually having natural gas power builds back in PA instead of West Virginia and Ohio is going to be a far more effective economic mover on the budget than making sure people get more weed.
How much,
Two questions.
how much does the energy really help if it's being sold to PJM and it's being sent to data centers in Virginia and Maryland?
Because we're exporting megawatts. When you export something, you bring in wealth. We are the largest exporter of electricity in this nation. When you export those megawatts, you bring dollars into the Commonwealth. Last question.
You have been a pretty big critic of Governor Dunbar's leadership during this budget process. Now that you're on the other side of the budget and also we're across the table in negotiations with him, did those criticisms still stand?
A lot of them still stand, yes. We were in meetings together. They were budget meetings, very cordial, very professional, but, he did leave me a sugar sprinkled heart one day at my seat, and I told him, I'm too old for you and we're both married, so knock it off.
Okay.